Good afternoon. Friday, January 26th, 15-minute Fridays happening on 3 platforms. So we are live on the YouTube, on the Facebook, and on the Instagram. So hello to everybody. I hope you are enjoying the warm weather. Speaking of warm weather, we are in the midst of a big melt, and that melt is going to continue. So one of the things the city has initiated is to respond in a new way with this warm weather melt. So we are going to be doing more catch basin clearing. So those are the drains on the side of the road. So we're going to be doing that. We are going to, again, be moving a bit of snow around and trying to ensure that we don't get a bunch of puddling as we go through a giant melt. I feel so bad for community volunteers. They just got their rake ice up and going and perfect, and now it is melting. And what a sad state of affairs for those rink volunteers. They're going to have to try all over again. So yeah, it's going to be another tricky, challenging season for rink volunteers. That being said, right now the ice is nice and solid still. It's been getting cool at night. My kids skated quite a few days this week, and so hopefully your kids can get out and skate too if that is your thing. So getting ready for warmer weather. So that is what's happening. So approaching that, I want to talk about 3 big things today that are in the news cycle, and just sort of where I stand on it, what my thoughts are. So what I want to talk about, an incident that happened at City Hall. You may or may not have heard. There was a very scary, very real incident that involved a firearm in City Hall in Edmonton, and Edmonton City Hall needed to be evacuated. So I have touched base with my colleagues there. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the single-use items bylaw that is out, and there's some news that is happening around that. I've interviewed with a couple news outlets about that. And then I want to talk about the rebate notice of motion that a couple of my colleagues are bringing forward to council on Tuesday. So first, let's dive into Edmonton City Hall. I'm not here to comment on who it was, what their motives were. What I really want to comment on is what the effects are as a fellow elected official. So one, when I first heard about it, and I immediately reached out to my colleagues in Edmonton. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear this happened for you. This is super scary. Like, are you, your families, and your staff okay? Because yeah, that is scary. That is scary. And so I interviewed about it today with Livewire News, and sort of just like what my reaction was. There are policies and politics across this province, across this country, in this city, around the world that I don't agree with. I don't always agree with the approach, the tone, and similarly, people disagree with me. Violence is never the answer. And where we see violence against elected officials, those are in the states and the parts of the world where you do not have good, solid democratic systems, where there is room for opinion, where there is room for nuance, where there is room for context, and where there is room for conversation. And so the incident in Edmonton is worrisome in the sense of what it means in a broader context, in a political spectrum, or in a political system, with a political spectrum, for democracy and our right to express our feelings and our opinions and to be heard, but to do so with respect and kindness, and an understanding that often all decisions are a compromise of some sort and to a degree of some sort. So it concerns me, yes, for all of the people that were there in the building. I ended up on a call today with someone who was there in the building, who happened to be there at the time. There were children like steps away from this. We welcome children into City Hall every single day. So it's deeply concerning. And what I would say is this is we all have a part to play in that when people talk about harm to elected officials, we need to step in and say, no, it's not okay. Even if you don't like that elected official, it's never okay. Violence is never okay. You can send me an email. You can't be violent in your email. I've received some very violent, very harassing emails. That's not okay. You can send and you can disagree on policy all you want. You can disagree with the tone of my voice if you would like. You could disagree with how I voted. You can do all of those things. You can't do so in a violent environment. You can't. And so I think that, fundamentally, we all have families that we want to come home to at the end of the day. So I'm going to leave that be and I'm going to move on. Let's talk about single use items. We're getting some emails about it. I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. So, one, it shouldn't take an email campaign from someone who regularly hates on City Hall. So I'm talking about Common Sense Calgary. And it shouldn't take them telling you that you should be outraged about this for you to send me an email. If you're truly enraged about it, if you're truly absolutely send me an email. We can have a conversation about what this means. There is a comment, I'd like to get a bag at McDonald's without begging. Can we get rid of the new law? There is some absolute confusion out there about what should be a bag in a bag and what shouldn't be in a bag. So ultimately, what's the purpose of the bylaw? The bylaw is to make people aware of their consumer behavior. That's what it comes down to. And it's to reduce the load on our landfills. It's to stop and decrease pollution when and where possible. Reusable bags aren't anything new. Bringing your own containers, not a new thing. Asking for something rather than just taking it and disposing of it shouldn't be a new thing. So yeah, we have some communication pieces that we need to work through. There's some information pieces that we need to work through, especially with our fast food restaurants. But on the broader whole picture, when we zoom up 30,000 feet to look at what the intent and the purpose of it is, not to make anyone's life any more cumbersome, or it's really to be like, hey, how collective as a society do we take care of each other and the environment? And do you really need a lid for your coffee cup if you're going to go be sitting at a table, right, in that coffee shop? Can you make sure you get it in a reusable cup? If you're going to fast food restaurant, or if let's say we're going to get takeout, if you're going to take it home, do you really need cutlery? Maybe not. I even think about, we like to get sushi a lot. I don't need chopsticks. I have chopsticks at home. I can use my fingers. I've been using reusable bags. Probably many of us have been using reusable bags. So why do we do that and not a rebate? So rebates actually aren't incentives for a lot of people. And we're going to get to that in the next, about the notice of motion. Rebates don't work. So this is where that sort of penalty, right? When you have to pay for a bag, you're actually paying for something that you're using versus getting a rebate for something that you're not using. At the end of the day, businesses are having to purchase bags because they know some people aren't going to bring them. We're helping them to offset their costs. Many businesses have been charging for bags for years. For years, they have been charging for bags. This is not a new practice. This is actually a practice led by a capitalist industry who said, hey, actually, we're going to pass these costs on to consumers. We're codifying it in bylaw to, one, reinforce that they're allowed to do that, and two, to say, hey, consumers, let's be aware of what you're using, how you're using it, when you're using it, and if you really need it. And that extra step of either having to ask or pay, it will help trigger a change in behavior. And so we've gotten to a point where we have just talked about it collectively as society for many, many years. And now we're saying it's not enough. There are too many single-use items hitting our waste stream, and it is deeply challenging, and it is super costly to build new landfills, and it's super costly to remediate landfills. So we need to do something about it. So that's why we're here with a single-use bylaw. I know some people want to probably walk it back. I don't think that's the right answer. Walking it back isn't the solution. Education is the solution. Talking with people is the solution. Getting out there and working with our partners who are running the fast food restaurants and all those things, that's the solution. And we can do that. And it's going to take a hiccup and it's a learning curve. Again, yes, there are fines associated with it. Fines are always for egregious behavior in bylaw. We actually, we're 2 weeks in. We're not going to walk around finding your McDonald's or finding your Tim Hortons because they're, passing, not charging you for the bag that your donut came in. That's not what we're after here. So what we're after is accountability for choices. That's what this bylaw is about. So let's move on. Let's talk about the rebate notice of motion. Actually, no, I'm going to back up. Because I'm going to just tell you an anecdote of I went to a store today. I went and bought a book. I went to Owl's Nest in Britannia. If you haven't been there, it's a fabulous little local bookstore. Shout out to all of our local bookstores. Anyways, the lady in front of me had pre-ordered a book online, and she said, can I get a bag? And the lady behind the counter said, there is a new rule in place where we're charging for bags. And the lady said, oh, no problem. I don't need a bag then. And she goes, oh, is that your rule? And Oh, when did you start doing that, charging for bags? And the lady behind the counter said, actually, it's a new bylaw with the city of Calgary. And so, we are now having to charge for bags. And the lady in front of me said, oh, I guess that would make less people take bags then. That's kind of a good thing. And like I'm literally just watching this happen. And the lady behind the counter, she goes, yeah, I think that's the whole purpose of it. So I was like, oh, hey, look, it works. Anyways, that's my anecdote. Okay. I could tell you another anecdote about the rebate notice of motion too. So we don't create things just for nothing. We're not creating things to make your life harder, but accountability matters. So let's talk about the rebate notice of motion. So Councillor Wong and all, or 5 other councillors, are bringing a notice of motion on Tuesday to issue a rebate for $23 million in property tax collection to those who pay their property taxes. So I've been really vocal that I can't get behind it. And I can't get behind it because it's not an equitable program. So what I mean is, if you are a landlord and you receive that property tax rebate, you have no obligation to pass that on to your renters who are, through their rent, paying your property taxes. I mean, ideally, that's how you have your business structured as a landlord. You have no obligation to pass that on. You can just pocket that money and walk away with it as a profit. So when you think about the affordability crisis that we are in and the insane rent increases that have happened across some of like our bigger rent providers, Boardwalk, Avenue Living, they are not going to be passing those on. So all of those massive rent increases, anywhere from 10 to 30%, right? Not even as a result of property tax increases, because that's not where the majority of property tax increases are. That's not helping affordability for those people. They are not seeing that money back. And if they were to see that money back, it would be like $30 a year. But like, let's say you now have $30 per rental unit and you have 5,000 rental units. You do the math. That's not money that's going back towards affordability for residents. That's money that's going directly into the pocket of landlords and large business owners. So fundamentally, when you look at it from an equity standpoint, when you look at it from an affordability standpoint, it doesn't make sense. I've had 0 people ask me for a rebate. 0. So you can be mad about the tax increase, and we can talk about the tax increase. You can be mad about the tax increase. That is okay. What I'm saying is the functions of performing a rebate and the equity that it is trying to achieve is a myth. So just that alone, I can't support it. Do we need to continue to look for relinquishments across the organization and the corporation? We absolutely do. Those are things that happen annually. Do we need to be better at highlighting them? Yeah, I think that we have some work to do there. What I also hear is my colleagues are saying there are things that I think that we're paying for that I don't think we should be doing. So let's get into that conversation. But let's not put pencils down and stop work that this budget has already put going. So these are projects like safety around schools. So that's a thing. Families who have done their budget calculations based on the cost of transit. So, kids under 12 are riding transit free, or their transit costs haven't gone up. That's super important too. So there are people who've made decisions already based on what we've done. And there is a gesture of offering a rebate, but it also means that things aren't going to get done. It means projects can get delayed. And those are projects that people are wanting and asking for in their communities and in their neighborhoods. So if there are things that you think that we should not be spending money on, if there's a program that you see that we're offering that you don't think we should be spending on, I am open to those suggestions. You can drop those to the board team, Ward 11 at calgary.ca. We are taking that in all the time. I have asked questions about a number of programs that we are running, the costs associated with them, and what kind of value that they're offering back to Calgarians. And I often get a really good rationale on why we're doing it. I often then understand the impact that it's having for Calgarians, and actually in the grand scheme of things, the very low dollars. Ultimately, we are a city on our way to 2 million people. We are like almost 1.5 million people. I've yet to see. So if you have evidence of this, I'd love to see it. I've yet to see a municipality continue to cut taxes and increase services. I've yet to see that. So if you have data on that, would love to read it. That's generally not global world works. Taxes are always going up to some degree at inflation. We, for a number of years, weren't even matching inflation plus population growth to keep up with the delivery of services. We are finally catching up with getting fire service back to a base level. We are barely a base level of fire service on national standards, on like North American wide standards. So do we cut a fire hall? Do we not have engines and growing in new communities? Do we not replace libraries? Like, so if my colleagues want to cut things, they also need to come forward with the ideas themselves and not just ask administration to do that. They need to co-design those solutions with administration. I've been working on that for a long time, but we also, we have to sort of understand the flux and the tension that we're in, that you can't try to be a world-class leading city with great infrastructure that attracts people, and have all this like saying old lagging infrastructure, which is what we've had. We've relinquished and deferred so many things for a long time that we are now playing catch up. So we're in a tricky position. We're in a tricky position where past budget decisions are catching up with us now. And if we continue on a path of past budget decisions of cuts, we're just passing the problem down the road. And I don't want to do that. I didn't come here to just pass the problem down. I came here to tackle these problems and these challenges. And it's deeply uncomfortable at times because we're asking a lot of people in really challenging economic and financial and affordability times. We are asking a lot of people. I got that. So we are happy, open to feedback, love the conversation. Do we need to look for relinquishments? We totally do. Do we need to look for corporate savings? We always do. Do we need to also look for ways to maximize our revenues off of our investments? Also, yes, it's both end. And I think at the end of the day, I really, really believe in this city, and I really believe that we can do all things. We need to embrace that mindset a little bit. And again, the collective power of contribution, time, talent, and resources. I think we can do good things. So that's that. I am going to go enjoy the sunshine with my pups and take them for a walk before I probably dig back into a little bit more work tonight. I'm super excited to go see Indigenous Divas tomorrow night with One Yellow Rabbit. And the Calgary Phil. That is going to be spectacular. I'm super excited about that. There are great things. If you haven't looked at it, One Yellow Rabbit High Performance Rodeo is on. The tickets are all super for us. So like, if you can get out and enjoy the arts, I would love for you to do that. Chinook Blast is coming, which is basically open, free winter activation throughout the downtown. Maybe I'll share a little bit more about that next week. I would love to see you do that. I hope you have a lovely weekend. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll talk to you later.